Can you believe that Kirby's been around for over 100 years? That's bonkers, right? This suction-based superstar has been cleaning up the world since 1906. Jim Kirby, the man responsible for creating and naming this lovable windbag, has made Kirby one of the most popular brands in over 50 countries. Not to mention the 1990 Generation 3 redesign that updated Kirby for the modern era and made it... Huh? What do you mean? Oh. The video game character, not the vacuum brand. That makes a lot more sense. Now that I'm back on track, let's talk about the pink puffball we all actually know and love, Kirby. Even though this Kirby hasn't been around for 100 years, he's still managed to make a huge impact on the gaming landscape since his introduction in 1992. Part of what makes him a fan favorite is his unique assortment of powers and abilities. He can float, fly around on his warp star, and expand his body to an insane degree. But the most noteworthy is his copy ability. Kirby inhales his enemies and through some sort of what I assume is space magic, can steal their abilities and use them as his own. No matter what situation Kirby is faced with, he can always overcome it, thanks to his ability to adapt quickly to constantly changing circumstances using his copy ability. Kirby is genuinely the most adaptable character in video games. And even though you don't have the same abilities as him, there's a lot he can teach you about how to be adaptable in your own life. This is What I Learned Playing Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Before I talk about adaptability from a development perspective, I want to go back to its roots in biology. According to our friends at National Geographic, adaptation is the adjustment of organisms to their environment in order to improve their chances at survival. This means that organisms change their bodies or behaviors to better suit the situation they're in, and this is a key piece of adaptability. I'm sure Kirby never envisioned having to wedge a vending machine in his mouth to break down walls, but his environment changed, and he adapted to overcome the obstacles the Forgotten Land presented. There's an interesting quote from Charles Darwin where he said, "It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." So what does all this talk about the animal kingdom actually mean for adaptability and Kirby? Well, like I said earlier, adaptability has its foundation in the biological concept of adaptation, but frames itself around the human condition, defining it as the ability to modify behavior and learn new skills in response to changing circumstances. While this definition sounds remarkably close to adaptation, it focuses on learning new skills as a response to changing circumstances, which Kirby is exceptional at. Take the Mouthful modes for example. Their inclusion in the game is still questionable at best in my opinion, but they serve as a perfect example of Kirby's adaptability. Because as you progress through the game, new obstacles present themselves to Kirby that he couldn't hope to overcome with his copy ability alone. So he adapted to his new environment by learning how to use Mouthful modes. Honestly, they look extremely uncomfortable, but thanks to his body being immensely flexible, I'm confident he'll be okay. Which makes sense, because being flexible is a big part of adaptability. However, flexibility and adaptability are unique terms that shouldn't be confused with one another, because there's a distinct difference between the two. Flexibility is generally more passive than adaptability. What I mean by that is when something changes in their environment, a flexible person just kind of goes with the flow and accepts their new environment, which is a great quality to have, let's not discount that. But where adaptable folks have the advantage is their more active approach to learning the necessary skills to thrive in their new environment. They don't just accept their new environment, they take deliberate actions to position themselves for future success, like our boy Kirby. If Kirby was only flexible, we probably wouldn't have a very fun game. He would settle down, build a bigger house in Waddle Dee Town, and spend his days serving customers at the cafe. Which isn't a bad life, but it doesn't make for a compelling video game. Luckily for us, Kirby chose adaptability and braved the Forgotten Land, learning new skills with the hopes of returning to Dreamland. Think of flexibility and adaptability in a similar vein to how all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. Adaptable people are flexible, but not all flexible people are adaptable. Get it? So when you really think about it, Kirby's a square, but in a good way. One other major piece of good news from this revelation is if you are flexible, you're already in a great position to become adaptable. It just takes a little work and a bit of a mindset shift. First and foremost, you need to understand that adaptability is a choice. Some people may be more prone to being adaptable, but they still have to make the choice to embrace an adaptable mindset. There's no doubt it's a tough choice to make, because, in all honesty, it's easier not to adapt. Sticking to the way you've always done something is more comfortable and requires significantly less effort. But what if Nintendo did the same thing with Kirby? We would still be working with a black and white, pixelated, 2D side-scroller where Kirby looks more like Casper. But most importantly, Kirby wouldn't have his copy ability. That's right, folks, the ability that basically defines Kirby didn't exist until the second game in the series, Kirby's Adventure. So if Nintendo continued to do things the way they always had, we probably wouldn't have the most adaptable character in video games, and this franchise would not exist. Thankfully, Nintendo has continued to adapt to the ever-changing gaming landscape, keeping Kirby relevant, successful, and if I haven't said it enough, adaptable. At the end of the day, you're the only one who can make the choice to be adaptable, but I strongly encourage you to make it, because just like in the animal kingdom, if you don't adapt, you're gonna get left behind. That's why I keep praising Kirby for his adaptability. You could plop him into any video game and he would be able to successfully adapt to the new environment. I honestly think he would even do well in a game like Doom. You can't tell me Kirby wouldn't crush it copying the Doomslayer or a Cacodemon. So let's talk about what you need to do in order to follow in Kirby's footsteps of being adaptable. For that, we can turn back to the definition of adaptability to know where we should focus our efforts: embracing change and learning new skills to fit your new environment. Let's face it, the world is constantly changing, and it's going to get harder and harder to prepare for and predict new situations you may find yourself in. However, it's not all doom and gloom, because there is a way you can better manage this ever-changing world: by embracing it. One of the mainstays of the Kirby series is that Kirby will lose his copied powers whenever he's hit. So you may go into the fight with the Space Ranger ability, intending to take your enemy down from a distance, but you're only ever one hit away from losing it. If you do get hit, you can usually get the ability back, but that isn't always the case, and you will quickly find yourself having to adapt to that major change. Here's the thing, if you've already embraced the inevitability of change, you're going to have a much easier time adapting when Kirby loses his powers mid-battle, because you were mentally prepared before the battle, knowing that it was a potential outcome. Embracing change is much more complex than I've outlined, and absolutely deserves its own video. But for now, just know that even when you're unable to control the changes to your environment, you can control how you respond to them. One way to do this is learning new skills to increase your potential for success. Kirby takes a little bit of a shortcut to the actual learning new skills piece because of his ability to instantaneously copy his enemy's skills and use them as his own. So he does learn new skills to adapt to various situations, but not the same way we do. If you want an in-depth look at how you can develop new skills, go watch the Skyrim video on skill development after this. Plug. Even though Kirby basically has a superpower, you actually have a leg up on him when it comes to learning new skills, because Kirby can only use one skill at a time. You, on the other hand, can keep adding skills to your arsenal and use them whenever you need to adapt to a new situation. As you continue to embrace change and learn new skills, adaptability will become a major piece of how you function every day. You'll be more resilient and have a diverse set of skills that you can use to thrive in your ever-changing environment. And hey, if you're lucky, you may even inspire others around you to be like Kirby and try to copy your adaptability. Just make sure they don't try to inhale you while they do it. And that's it. Do you think Kirby's the most adaptable character in video games? If not, let me know who you think it is and why down in the comments. Also, I want your opinions on the Mouthful modes in the Forgotten Land. I may be overreacting, but they just wig me out. As always, if you liked what you saw today, I'd love for you to subscribe. See you later.